This is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be going over some of the finer points in the assembly for the Cow Squish, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description or search for Moogly Blog Cow Squish, and you'll find both the pattern and the video tutorials in both right and left-handed. To make this pattern, you'll need Bernat Blanket O'Go, and I used 3 skeins, one in monochrome, one in foxglove, and one in hibernate, but of course, you can mix up the colors however you like. You'll also need an 8mm crochet hook. This one is by Susan Bates. And as you can see by looking at this Cow Squish, we're going to need some stuffing. I recommend Fairfield Poly-fil or a 10-inch Fairfield pillow ball, as well as safety eyes, 24mm for the eyes and 14mm for the nostrils. And stitch markers, scissors, tapestry needles, all your usual crochet supplies will also come in very handy to make the Cow Squish. First, a quick look at the finished Cow Squish. Just like the other squish patterns on Moogly Blog, as you can see, it's basically a 10-inch ball, a little bigger once you figure in the yarn. But we start with the top-down portion that you can say here we've worked tapestry style, mostly in white for a few rows, but then we want to put in some sections of black to create that really traditional Holstein look. So we work from the top down, then we add some ears, horns, a snout, eyes, nostrils, and don't forget a little tail. And then we make the belly. Starting with the black this time, we sort of work out in that same circle, add these little feet, and then finally we simply stitch the belly to the top here to assemble the whole thing. So as I've mentioned, I've done several other squishes, so I've gone over the basics of the half double crochet in a spiral. That's really all it is to make the main portions. But for this one, we've got the snout, horns, and feet that are just a little bit different, and I'll go over the assembly again a little bit at the end as well. One of the trickier pieces for the Cow Squish is the snout, and to make the snout, I used the light pink color from the foxglove colorway of Bernat Blanket O'Go. You can see I've got it separated out right here. To make this one, we're going to begin with a chain of 6. So I'll start with a slip knot on my hook. There we are. And then we're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to skip the chain closest to the hook. And I like to work into the back humps, but if you prefer, you can work under the top 2 V's. After we skip that chain closest to the hook, we're going to half double crochet in the remaining 5 chains. But I recommend you pull out a couple of stitch markers here. It'll just make it a lot easier. So there's our first half double crochet. I'm going to grab my little dish of stitch markers here, and I'll put one right in that very first stitch. There we are. Push that one out of the way a little bit there. And then we just half double crochet in each remaining stitch across. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So with the one we did first, that makes a total of 5. So we've worked into each of those remaining chains. And now what we're going to do is turn and chain 1. Then we can begin round 2. So the first row was sort of a row here, as you can see, we've turned, but the second one is going to be a round, and we're going to go all the way around to really create that great snout shape. So after we've got our chain 1, we're going to half double crochet in each of these stitches. So there's 1 there. Let's go ahead and use a second stitch marker in the top of this first stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Pull up some more yarn here from our O'Go. I love using these O'Gos. They're so wonderfully tangle-free. So we've got 4 done. Let's do 1 more. And we're going to go into the top of the marked stitch this time. So we're in the right spot here. That's 5. We can go ahead and take that stitch marker right on out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work 4 half double crochets in that skipped chain. Normally we don't work into that chain. It's the turning chain, but we're doing a kind of an unusual little piece here. We want a special shape. So let's work 4 half double crochets right into that turning chain itself. So we're going to yarn over and go right into the side of that row. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that should really bring us right along that curve. And it sets us up to be able to crochet into the bottom of that first row. So now what we're going to do is half double crochet in the bottom of those same 5 stitches from row 1. Sometimes that first one wants to hide a little bit under those 4 we've made, so make sure you give that a little tug so you don't miss that first one. If you find you've only got 4 left, it's probably hiding under those 4 we put in the side. So just pull those back so you can find that first stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, a little bit more yarn here, 4, and 5. And that should take you right up to the one right next to your tail end there, right next to your slip knot. Then we just work 4 more half double crochets into the end of row 1 on this side. So these last 4 half double crochets are going to be the last 4 stitches for our snout. So there's 1, 2, and you can just put that right in the side of the row as if you were working into the side, you know, along the edge. 3 and 4. After those 4 are made, we want to go ahead and break our yarn, leaving a long tail for sewing. You'll notice I haven't joined to this one yet. We're going to do that after we break our tail. So since we're going to be sewing this onto our Cow Squish body, we want to make sure to leave a little bit of length here, as I say, a long tail to sew on. You can measure that out, or I just usually go around whatever it is I want to sew on a couple of times, and that usually gives me all the length I need. After I've cut my yarn, I'm going to go ahead and gently just pull up on that right there with the hook. That's the word I'm looking for. Then we want to get our yarn on a yarn needle. You'll want to make sure you have one with a nice big eye for this super bulky yarn. Finally, we're simply going to make a seamless join. We can go ahead and take our yarn needle and go right in that first marked stitch for round 2. Then we can go ahead and take that stitch marker on out of the way and simply sew right under those top 2 loops. And then you can see right here where it comes out, we want to bring that needle right back to where that yarn comes out and send it right on through here. This will sort of create a false stitch look. We don't really need an extra stitch there. We've got all the stitches we need, but it really creates a nice smooth look. And now all we need to do is add some safety eyes for the nostrils, and you'll be ready to add your snout to your body. The next piece I want to go over for the Cow Squish are the horns. And for these, you'll need, of course, to make 2, but they're the same. And to make these, I use the light gray color from the Hibernate colorway. We're going to start each of these horns with a magic circle. So I'm going to take the end of my yarn and wrap it around my non-hook forefinger twice towards me. So there's once and twice. Then I'm going to insert my hook under both of those strands, grab the one that's furthest back there, and pull it just under the other one's edge. I'm going to carefully yarn over and pull through, and this locks my magic circle together. So to begin stitching, I'm going to chain 1. There we are. And then we want to work 3 single crochets in the ring. Normally with a magic circle, I'd try and keep my finger in there, but this is a super bulky yarn, so I can go ahead and pull it out and just start crocheting. So let's get 3 single crochets in there. 1. And notice too that I'm going over that tail end. That's really important when working with a magic circle so that you can pull it all closed when you're done. These are a little fiddly because we're working just a few stitches with some big bulky yarn, but you just want to take your time. So right there, we now have 3 single crochets. So that is our entire first round. So to make it a little easier to find, I'm going to go ahead and mark that first one I just made. And then I'm going to go ahead and take that tail end and really close up that ring. With this chenille yarn, if you pull it hard enough, it will break. You have to pull pretty hard, but it's got a lot of texture to it. So when you're closing up that magic ring, just pull a little bit gently at a time so you don't break the yarn. You can get a nice good close there. You just have to have a little bit of patience. Then we're ready for round 2 of our horns. Now, a lot like our body, this is worked in a spiral, so we're not going to join. We're just going to start our round 2 by working directly into that first stitch of round 1. So we find that stitch marked stitch and we go right in there for 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and you can see right now it really wants to be wrong side out. That's okay, we're going to push it through later. So there's the first one. Let's go ahead and move that stitch marker on up. There we are. And then let's go ahead and put the second one in that same stitch. It is a little tight in there. So there's that second one. And then before I continue on with round 2, I'm going to take the end of my crochet hook, or you could use your finger, whatever is handy, and really sort of push that round 1 so that now we're working from the right side. We really want to just push it down there. I'm not going to worry about weaving in this end. I'm actually going to use it to stuff the rest of the horn, because with this yarn, this chenille yarn, again, it's so grippy. I'm not really worried about that magic circle coming out or anything. I just want to make sure that my horn is pointed right side out now. So like I say, you can use your hook or a finger to really sort of push that right side out. Then we can get our hook right back in there and continue on with round 2. So we're going to half double crochet in the next stitch. Want to make sure we get under both of those strands of yarn there. Like I say, when you're working with these little pieces, it can take a little extra time. There we go. There's our half double crochet. And then we have 2 single crochets in the last stitch. Don't worry about that tail, just kind of keep pushing it right out of the way for now. So I want to find that very last stitch there. This is our marked stitch, so it's going to be right in between. Make sure we're not going to the same stitch here. We are. Make sure we get to the next one. So there's 1 and 2. All right, and then we're ready. We're back at that marked stitch for round 3. So now to begin round 3 of our horn, we single crochet in the first stitch, which would be the marked one. We can go ahead and move that stitch marker right on up to our new first stitch here. There we go. And then we want to single crochet and half double crochet in the next stitch. So we find the next stitch, single crochet, followed by a half double crochet. Then we half double crochet in the next stitch. And half double crochet and single crochet in the next stitch. So half double crochet, then single crochet, and then finally single crochet in the very last stitch. That brings us back to the stitch marker, so we know we're in the right spot to begin round 4. To begin round 4, we start with 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So that will be our marked stitch. So there's 1, and this will be the first stitch of this round, so we'll go ahead and move that stitch marker right on up. And then we want to put a second single crochet in that same stitch. Then we single crochet in the next stitch. Work 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. Getting a little bit easier now that we've got a few more stitches here and a little more space to work into. So there's 1, 2. Get that sort of straightened out there. Then we half double crochet in the next stitch. Just 1. Then 2 half double crochets in the stitch after that. 1 and 2. There we go. And finally, we single crochet in the last 2 stitches. 1 and 2. So that is what your horn should look like after round 4. Round 5 of our horn is very simple. We're going to finish it up and prepare to sew it onto our body. So the first thing we do is actually slip stitch in the next stitch. It's right in that first marked stitch. We're going to go ahead and just set that aside now. We're all done with that. So there is a slip stitch like so. And then that's it. That's our only stitch for round 5. But we, again, want to cut a long tail so we're ready to sew this on. So again, I just let it maybe wipe it around, leave it a little bit longer for the horn because it is so small, so you've got a little bit more length to work with, but a good foot or so should be plenty. So we cut that off, and since we've already slip stitched and formed a nice little finish here, we can just pull that right on up, and then if we want to, we can pull back that tapestry needle or yarn needle, get that on there, and then simply slip stitch, or rather do that seamless join, I should say, with your needle again, the same thing we did last time. This just gives us a really nice gradual step down since we were working in a spiral. And now all we need to do is simply stuff that tail end that we started with for our horn right on in there, and it's all ready to sew onto our body. Just remember, you're going to want to make 2. The last piece that's really different for the Cow Squish are the feet. So for the feet, I'm using the same color I used from the horns, the light gray color from the Hibernate colorway. So we're going to begin again with a magic circle. So I want to take my non-hook forefinger and go over that twice with the tail end of the yarn. And again, I want to leave a nice little bit of a tail here. Then I'm going to go ahead and secure that magic ring, slip my hook in there, pull that one through. Whoop, there we go. Pull that yarn over and pull through, sort of locks the rings here together. Then I can pull my finger out of the way and we'll begin round 1. I'll start with a chain 1 and we're going to single crochet in the ring. So that's our first stitch. And again, we're going to be working in a spiral. So let's go ahead and mark that first stitch. There we are. And then I want to work 6 half double crochets into the ring as well for a total of 7 stitches. So we've got our single crochet. Now we need 6 half double crochets. So we'll go right into that ring. And again, I want to make sure that when I go into the ring, I'm also working over that tail end. That's what allows us to close up our magic ring. There we go. So there's 1. It does want to get tangled though. 2, 3, 4, straighten that back out. 5, let's see. Was that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got 2 more to make. 6 and 7. You should have a total of 7 stitches. 1 half double crochet followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 half double crochets. Got it. All right. Now again, this tends to want to curl this way. We want to push it that way a little bit. And then we can go ahead and close up that magic circle. Again, just make sure you pull nice and gently a little bit at a time until that's nice and closed up. Then we're ready for round 2. Round 2 of our feet is quite simple. We're just going to work 2 half double crochets in each stitch around. Just make sure when you make that first one in that first marked stitch, since again, we are working in a spiral, we want to go ahead and move that stitch marker up. When we're working in spirals, it's very easy to accidentally lose our place, so that is a big lifesaver. So since we had a total of 7 stitches in the first round, after you put 2 half double crochets in each stitch of the second round, you'll have a total of 14 stitches. Now we're ready for round 3 of our feet. We're going to be working even this round with no more increases. So we want to half double crochet in the first stitch, but we still want to move that stitch marker up. There we are. Then we are going to single crochet in the next 5 stitches. So we find the next stitch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, oop, there we go, and 5. After that, we then half double crochet in the next stitch, or excuse me, the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. Single crochet in the next 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we are. And then finally, half double crochet in the very last stitch. And that is it for round 3. However, if you want to weave in this end, you can weave it in now. Otherwise, you don't need to cut it. You can just use it to sort of stuff the foot itself. Now at this point, we're actually going to be switching to rows and folding our foot in half to create the foot shape that we see in the final cow squish. So what we want to do for row 4 is actually chain 1, and then we are going to be folding it flat. And this is a little tricky. For this first stitch, we want to go through the next stitch and the stitch we just made squished together like this. So the easiest way I find to begin it is not to set it all up with stitch markers first, like we might for most things, but we're going to go ahead and just set up this very first one. So it's really easy to spot, rather than the last one we made. So that's the first stitch of round 3, and the last stitch of round 3. We're beginning row 4. I've got a chain 1. I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it. Make sure you pull your working yarn back out of the way, So we can go in to that stitch we just made, but that one from the inside out so that we can squish these things together. Make sure your tail's all tucked in if you left that attached. We can go ahead and pull that one right out of the way. Pull this one out of the way as well. Yarn over. Pull that loop through both stitches and finish this single crochet. So there is our first single crochet. Now you can see these are sort of squished together and lined up. You can use stitch markers if you like to, or you can just continue to single crochet across. Go into the next stitch and the stitch opposite. Single crochet those two together. And we're going to do this all the way across. And since we had 14 stitches in the previous round for this row, we'll have a total of 7. So just keep working right across, squishing those together. And it's just going to trap that tail end right inside, which adds just a little bit of extra puff to our feet. The last set can be a little bit tricky. I should have 6 done here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So that very last one, you just want to kind of get it in there as best you can. It's going to seem a little strange because there's just that little section in between these 2 stitches, but trust the process. Get your hook in there and pull it through, and you've got a great single crochet right there. So all that's left for our feet themselves is to do row 5. We're just going to add a little bit of leg here. We want to chain 1, turn and chain 1, and single crochet in each stitch across. Then we simply break our yarn and weave in our ends. We won't need long tails for our feet because they get stitched into the belly as seen in the bunny squish. So now I've got just one more stitch here. That makes all the stitches for our foot. And of course, you'll want to make 4 of these total. Then, as I say, you can simply break your yarn and weave in your ends. So now let's talk about assembly. Here's the finished cow squish, but it was made up of the parts you've seen here, plus the parts you've seen in the bunny squish tutorial. So we started with the body from the top down, worked in a spiral. After the body is made, then we make the parts. The ears are exactly the same as made in the bunny, but you'll want to make one white and one black. Then we've got our 2 horns right up here. So when it comes time to start sewing things onto the body, what you want to look for is right here around 18. I can see right there happens to be where I whip stitched the belly to the body. This right here is round 18, which is the final round of the body itself. And right there is the color change. And you want to use that color change from black to white or whatever colors you've decided to use to mark sort of the center of the face. So you can use that as your guidepost. You can put the safety eyes on the snout that we made right here. You just sort of center those on either side. Then you can sew the snout right above there. That lines up right around rounds 14 through 16 or so. Then we've got the safety eyes sort of centered right off the snout. As we travel up, we've got the horns. The horns are sewn on using those long tails, just like we saw in the horn we just made. That's around rounds 4 and 5, counting down from the top of the body. And then we've got the ears, which have their own long tails that get sewn on around rounds 7 and 8 of the body. So we just come out from the center here for the horns. And then for the ears, just make sure, again, that it all lines up with that center color change for round 18 right there. Last but not least, before you finish sewing things onto the body, don't forget about that little tail, which you then want to center opposite that color change, of course, on the opposite side of the body. The belly is just the same as seen in the bunny squish or many of the tutorials, same as the body worked out, and then we simply add those feet by crocheting through both the feet and the belly for the final round of the belly. After the belly and the body have all their parts attached, then you can see, if you look really closely right here, we simply whip stitch the belly to the final round of the body and weave in those ends, and we're all finished. The little feet right here you can see are kind of all centered out. I did give specific stitches to sew those too, but if you need to adjust them for your own gauge, that's fine. And they just sit out. It's hard to see here because of the angle of the camera, but they just sit out really nicely and let our cow squish sit down wherever you put him really beautifully. And that's how to crochet the cow squish snout, horns, feet, and a bit of an assembly overview. As I said, this is a really simple pattern, and I've gone over some of the basic parts in the other squish videos, so hopefully this will help you finish up your cow squish as well. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.